Hey, my friends, what's going on? You could argue that the past shapes the future, that our past experiences really influence the way we think and behave. And that would be true. But there's a lot of in-between moments that we make a choice to think something or to default on a thought or action or to do a certain behavior because it just may be easier. Or we may just do things because it's more comfortable. We typically do default on that path of least resistance. And so in this video, I'm just going to highlight 5 ways to toughen the mind, to strengthen the body. And not everyone can do these, especially if you have a certain level of responsibility. This might be very difficult, very difficult. But it is something that maybe you can make some tweaks and changes to some of these things I'm going to speak of and maybe incorporate them in some way. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the first one here. And I'm actually in the midst of even doing this one right now as I speak. And that's to forego a night of sleep. And yes, I'm very tired. I just didn't go to sleep last night. And I don't do this a lot, but I try to do it at least once a month. And you may say, why would you want to do that? Because we are capable of doing things a lot more greater than what we think we can. And so if you're kind of wondering like why I'm struggling through this video, it's because I'm tired. But I just wanted to make the video to show you that I can make a video, I can stay up all night. I was working on my ebook, I was doing some reading, watching YouTube videos, just doing whatever I can to kind of stay awake. And I got through the night pretty easily. I was getting kind of tired though toward the end. But once the sun comes up, it makes it a lot easier just to kind of push through to the rest of the day. Now, I probably will go to bed quite early today, but not too early. And so when you forego a night of sleep, you find that you can go a lot longer than you think you can. And you can build a little confidence that if you had an emergency that you had to deal with that was all through the night, you could deal with it. Now, the older that I get, the more I see myself struggle with this. It's a lot more difficult. I'm not sure why that is, but maybe it's just that we deal with stress in different ways. And so all these things I'm going to be listing is basically just talking about that. It's creating a level of stress in the body or in the mind and just kind of allowing your body to cope and adjust to it. And so the goal is to kind of increase our buffer for stress. So we're a little more resilient. And so I think overall it's very helpful. You don't want to do all these things on a continuous basis every week. You would stress yourself out way too much. Just like you wouldn't want to stay up all night and go to work the next day. That could be very dangerous because on the drive to work, you could wreck. I make sure to only stay up all night if I have nowhere to go the next day. So it's safe. So anyways, let's go to number 2. Do a 24-hour fast. Now, anything over 24 hours, your body believes that it's actually starving. So you really don't want to do it just for health reasons. Don't go without, nutrition or calories more than 24 hours. But you can take it right up to the edge. And even if you do go a little over 24 hours, it's not going to be the worst thing ever. It's just not recommended. But I typically do 12 to 18 hour fast quite often, in fact. Mostly it's between 14 and 16 hours, 2 to 3 times a week minimum. Sometimes I do it the entire week just because I can get into a rhythm and still eat 2 meals. But, basically have a good window. It's called intermittent fasting. But what I'm talking about here is just doing a full day of fasting. And that helps you have to re-examine how you use your energy. Now, you still want to stay hydrated, and drink a lot of water and fluids, but we're talking about just your calories and nutrition. You can just go a day without that without much problem. But for some people, though, after you skip a meal, you start having some decrease in energy. And if you're not used to that, you might panic. And so it's really good to kind of get familiar with how your body feels and how it works when it's hungry, or when your brain, for example, just isn't working very well. Like mine isn't working that great right now. I did eat last night and even a small breakfast, but because I don't have sleep, it's a struggle. It's definitely a struggle. So that's something that you can do. Now, of course, if you have to go to work, you don't want to skip probably even a meal, because you want to be on your A game, especially if you have a job that's very physical. You don't want to hurt yourself. But if you have like a weekend off and you have nothing going on, it's not that big of a deal to skip a couple meals. So that's something to think about. Number 3, do a weekend-long solo camping trip. Just you and yourself, right? And make it a little bit challenging. Hike in 10, 20 miles and camp out Friday night, Saturday night, and get up and come back home midday Sunday or something. And kind of push your limits a little bit. Do it safely, but have an adventure. And a lot of times what we do is we play it really safe. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be safe once again, but we play it really safe. We go with a lot of other people. We only go for one night. Or if we do go for multiple nights on a camp out or a hike, we have tons of gear with us, like 2 and 3 times more food than we need. I'm just saying, just bring what you need, and let people know, of course, where you're going to be and when you should be back and all that stuff. But, kind of just make it a little bit more like a bare bones trip, and just bring your essentials and just, some basic safety equipment, and go out, have fun, but push yourself a little bit. And when you get back, you're going to realize what you did, and how much more you actually did than you thought you could do. And you'd be surprised how we kind of think that we can only do certain things. But we have a lot more capability within than we realize. Number 4, if you're like me, sometimes we put things off. And I think we all do. Some things you put off for weeks or months. I have a couple of things on a list that I've been putting off for years. It pertains to painting a certain room in my house and all this, and I've just been putting it off. And it's one of those things that just takes something that you can, manage and actually accomplish in a weekend, for example. Or if you have a whole week off, let's say, like you're on vacation and you're not going to travel and you're just going to stay home and relax. Maybe you just say, hey, I'm going to knock out this project that I've been putting off, or whatever it is that you've been putting off. And that right there can really boost morale. It can, I've even seen it so that things that people put off for a long, long time can actually kind of bring you down. Like I've seen people kind of like get depressed and they don't really know why. And then they kind of talk about stuff and that they're not really being efficient or successful. And I'm like, yes, you are. And then it comes out that they didn't do X, Y, and Z, and they've been putting it off and off. And then it kind of builds up. It builds to the point that you start to question your abilities on things. And even though it's not rooted in reality, sometimes we kind of magnify things in ways that are kind of hard to understand. And there's no need at all to make things that are solvable, that we have solutions to, something that brings us down. And so this is all about bringing us back to our kind of like our A game, if you will. We're trying to like clear our minds, and we're trying to remind ourselves that we can do a lot of things. And so that's what a lot of these things are about. It's just kind of like proving things to ourselves, in a safe way that we can do pretty much what we can set our minds on within, a realistic, type of objective. And so let's go into the last one here. This is number 5. If there was any of these that was going to be the most practical, it's going to be this one. And I kind of left it to the end because I know a lot of people who actually do this one. And after they do this for a little bit of time, and what I mean by that, I mean like 2, 3, 4 weeks, if you can keep on doing it, you can get into a habit of doing it, and it's kind of addictive in a good way. And that is to get up 30 to 40 minutes earlier than you used to get up, or you get up now, and go for a jog or work out. Do something that's pretty active. Really get the blood going. And right there, even though your objective may be just to do it for 1 week, and that's what I recommend, and you won't get into a new habit. You won't be able to develop a new routine just from doing something for just 1 week. Typically, it takes like 4 to 6 weeks for a lot of people, maybe even more. But you can at least get that feeling that you have a little more control. Especially if you can get up and get going, you're going to be a lot more alert by the time you get to work. You're going to probably be in a better mood. You may even lose a few pounds by going for a jog. If you jog 2-3 miles, even though that's not a lot, if you do that every day or most days, it's going to add up. You're going to be burning calories, and your metabolism is going to be that much more revved up. And so I think there's just things like this that we kind of think about, and how can we just change maybe small things, and over time, how do they influence us, and how can they better our ability to make better choices, and to think the way that we actually really want to think, and to behave the way that we want to behave. As always, thanks for checking the video out. And I'm going to try to get some sleep tonight. I'm kind of like a zombie right now. But it does help when I get through the day and I feel like I really accomplished this task, even though it's kind of, to a lot of people, it could be silly. But then I get some good sleep, and I definitely will sleep really good tonight. And when I wake up, it's just like a whole new me. And I've been doing this for many years, and it doesn't get really much easier every time I do it, but I do have the confidence, though, that I know I can do it. And that's the difference with a lot of things in life. If you believe that you can do it, most likely you can. You really can. Even though it doesn't feel like sometimes that you can. There's all kinds of people who've done amazing things that really didn't seem like it was humanly possible. But the body is just doing what it's told. And if you believe and you think that you're tired, you probably will be tired. If you think that you're alert and you can go for another few hours doing whatever you're doing, most likely you can. You can. So good luck on your adventure and all your task to better yourself. And I think I'm going to go for a walk in the woods and see if I can see some deer and stuff. And where I live, it's hunting season has begun just recently. And on my property, since I don't hunt, a lot of the animals come to my property as a refuge. And so there's a lot of times I wake up and there's a herd of deer in my front yard, or they kind of just know that I'm not going to hurt them. It's really interesting. And so sometimes I'll have an amazing amount of wildlife on my property, and my neighbors have no wildlife. And of course, they're the ones asking if they can hunt on my property because they know they're all over on my property. And I was like, no, thanks. I think I'm not going to have anybody, come over here. And I think that's kind of the fun thing, though, about having your own property, is that you can respect your property the way that you wish. And that includes the animals too, Some of the animals have gotten very comfortable because they see me outside so much. And it's not just the squirrels and the rabbits, but it just seems like sometimes the deer, they kind of just ignore me. And deer typically are very skittish. They typically just don't hang around humans. And so I try not to actually feed the deer because I don't want them to get too comfortable with humans in general, because I don't want them to be an easy target. But sometimes I have to feed the squirrels and the rabbits and things like that, chipmunks, and just because they're so cool, and I don't really typically have problems with them at all, messing with the house and everything like that. And I think that sometimes the older we get, though, too, we kind of have to re-examine how we think about our environment. And I definitely think that there's a lot of people who have agendas when we talk about environment stuff. As we know, a lot of people have a lot to gain by, carbon credits and, all this sketchy stuff. And the people who say that they're environmentalists, they're not. They're not really pro-nature. They're just pro whatever their special interest is. That's typically what I've been seeing over the last few decades. It's just it's kind of pathetic. But I'm rambling, probably because I'm like completely going mindless here. I'm getting so tired. I think I'm just going to have to keep on moving before I fall asleep standing up straight. So hey, thanks again though for checking in the video, and for hitting the like button, for leaving a comment. And I'm sure I'm going to get some comments like, go to bed. But I will here in a few hours. And, it's kind of interesting, though, like what the things that we do with our time. I may have mentioned that. I'm sure I have on the channel. That, people, what people do with their time. What do people have as goals? How should you live your life? These are all these big questions. These are some big questions. That's kind of one of the topics I look up a lot when I do like searches for YouTube videos and stuff. If I have a spare moment, I just want to see like not so much what other people are really doing, because it's all very arbitrary and I don't know. Only you really know what you should be doing with your time. But it is kind of interesting how people justify what they do with their time, and that's kind of what I kind of struggle with sometimes. Is like, wow, what is the purpose of of this or that, or what is the purpose of life here? And of course there's all kinds of answers, depending on your outlook and what you believe and you don't believe. But ultimately, though, I think that what is the motivation for us to do certain things? I think that's a big thing. Are you doing things out of fear, or are you doing things out of genuine love, or are you doing it out of curiosity, or are you just kind of just trying to get through the day? What are you really doing and how you're doing it? And so, wow, I'm really rambling. So this is the philosophy video of the year. Okay. So thanks for your support, and I'll catch you later.